What's the story, guys? Welcome to another Irish Media Watch, and this time we're focusing on news talk. Specifically, the riots that have broken out at Citywest last night, and Shane Coleman's assertion that there's absolutely no one else to blame for this besides the rioters. He was fulsome in his defence of the government and how they have absolutely nothing to do with the chaos unleashed out there. Unfortunately for Shane, there's one small problem. If anyone in the Department of Justice or anyone in the Department of Children had actually done their jobs, that poor 10-year-old child wouldn't have been raped by a guy who shouldn't have been in the country, and that event wouldn't have been the match that lit the fire to what happened last night. The media is in full-on propaganda mode over this whole thing. If you were to listen to them, you'd swear last night was like the fall of Sodom and Gomorrah. They even referenced the riots that broke out around November in 2023 after those kids were attacked in Parnell Square. But I watched a fair few streams last night and there was nowhere near as much violence that they're maintaining. In fact, the one guy who seemed to get the biggest kicking out of all of it was some poor lad from GB News who got sprayed in the face and then shielded to the ground by what looked like a female Gardaí getting a little bit high in her own power. Because that was a very short guard and that was a very feminine looking face behind that shield. It's been interesting to note this morning that the mainstream media don't want to talk about British media getting beaten up by the guards. But the footage they've been showing is pretty stark and does not look well internationally. The media clearly wanted something to kick off, and there's a whole host of really strange things that happened. For instance, I was watching the 9 o'clock news and RTE's reporter on the ground was in Rathcoole, a good couple of miles away from the event, as he clearly got the notice from the guards that something was going to go up and he shouldn't be in Dodge. It's just bizarre to watch an RTE reporter sit in the Garda station basically having a cup of tea, reporting on events that he can't actually witness himself. This is why, as a member of the general public, if I actually wanted to know what was going on, I had to watch the stuff, what was happening to like the GB News guys, or the Rebel News guys, or just the random people that were putting up streams that they could. There was one poor lad who pretty much had the best stream, I think it was DC Roams was his name, and he had like 4% power left in his camera, it was about to die at any moment. But just how the whole affair unfolded was bizarre too, because the Gardaí started pushing them back in what looked like pulses or waves. They brought out the Garda water cannon, which they didn't actually use in the end. But the places where they were steering people were strange. For instance, they forced people effectively up along the Lewis line, heading towards Citywest Shopping Centre, which is right next to the McDonald's up there. And this is really odd because right in the middle of that is a construction site. And I'm pretty sure if you're going to funnel a load of rioters in one direction, you don't want to be heading towards a construction site where you can pick up a load of bricks and start throwing them at guards. I don't know if I buy into the notion of the whole psyop notion that people are putting forward that this thing was kind of planned. But there's some weird stuff happening, up to and including that one car, or that one van that was burnt out, just basically being left there with one step away from having a sign on it saying, "Burn me." That was sitting there the whole day. There was no guard near it. There was nobody hanging around outside it. Nobody was chased off away from it. It was just sitting there. So there's something squirrely about the whole affair. It does almost look like they wanted the newspaper's coverage today to be all about a bunch of scroats setting fire and rampaging around Citywest, instead of actually covering the real story, which is the rape of that poor 10-year-old girl. And it's absolutely undeniable that the fault of that lies mainly with the government. The man who raped her shouldn't have been in the country. He was a spoofer, he's an illegal alien. He's basically thieved from the public purse for the last 6 years as he fought tooth and nail to stay in this country, as he lied about being an asylum seeker before being issued with a deportation order. But then he was just left, walked out of the court and waffed around the country for 7 months. Likewise, the girl who ended up getting raped was supposedly in the care of Tusla and has gone missing twice before. Not once, it's the second time she got missing. And indeed, when you look at Tusla's announcement on the back of all this, their PR statement, the localisation of her in the end basically is amounted to the girl herself, after she was raped, ringing them up, telling them to come look for her. They didn't have a clue where she was. And if it wasn't for the child herself, she'd probably still be out there. And this is the state of our government forces. I mean, we're supposed to have the resources to ensure that we live in a safe and secure society. The whole idea of going through the judicial system is that if this guy is found to be a bogus asylum seeker and he's issued a deportation order, he should be gone. He should not be hanging around the country for months. Likewise, if you've got an emotionally damaged and unwell girl in state custody, she shouldn't be absconding and bailing it out of people's care on a semi-regular basis. So the government is absolutely delighted that things kicked off last night, because now they don't have to address these issues. They don't have to talk about it. And indeed, their mates in the media are doing their best to downplay the story as it is. I just put up a screenshot there of the cover of the Indo today. And it basically says, Gardaí attacked by protesters after alleged sexual assault. Now, Fionn, your arse is covered when you use the word alleged, so you could have said alleged 10-year-old child was raped by an illegal alien. It adds a lot more colour to the story. It explains when you've seen the state fail in its duty in such a massive degree as to why you would suddenly have thousands of people out on the street baying for blood. But once again, that's a little bit too much like reporting the news. People in government departments should be hauled up for this. People should be sacked for this. We should have a rigorous debate about what the hell we're doing being involved in what looked like a massive globalised people smuggling operation. But I know what's going to happen. You'll have Micheál come out now, or maybe Jim O'Callaghan, and they'll say, oh, we'll have a review, or we'll have an inquiry. Oh, we'll take on board and learn lessons from everything we see here. And ultimately, nobody will get sacked, nothing will change, and nothing will come of it. In fact, to be brutally honest with you, the only end game I actually see in this is that Tooslet is probably going to be renamed into Barbog or something like that, and some lad in the private sector is going to make out like a bandit getting a rebranding contract for the place, just like what happened with Force when they found to be up their arse and stuff. All the while, the people who are actually responsible for this, who led to this situation where this poor girl went through the horror she did, will be just let off the hook. I got to apologise about how I sound in this video. I know it's a little bit choppy, but I'm really angry at this because we have the tools we need to change our society, to protect us from stuff like this. And these guys are just run them into the ground. It's almost like they deliberately try to discredit them. I mean, I'll give you an example. Let's say I raped somebody. Let's say I did an absolutely horrific crime. I get caught for it, I'm brought to court, I deny everything that happens. I force the poor girl that I committed the deed to into the stand to have to go through the whole horror again. Denying everything, feigning mental illness, bringing an interpreter with me just because I can't understand what's going on. That's basically what's happening in our place. The jury then find me guilty. The judge then throws the book at me, says I'm an absolute monster. 15 years, you're going down for every single day. And then in the last part of the act, I just walk out the court and I go off from eating McDonald's because there's nobody to take me to jail. That's our deportation system. That's what happens. We actually have the guy banged to rights. We've delivered the judgment. We've given the deportation order and nobody enforces it. And it's making a complete mockery of the judicial system. And this is why the government is partly responsible for what happened. This is why what kicked off last night is inevitable. And it will happen again if we don't see the state get its act together and actually start acting on the part of the Irish people. Like I said, sorry if this sounds a bit rougher, but I'm really angry at what I've seen last night. And the massive spin campaign that's going on all day today and what we're seeing in the newspapers. The core of this story should have been what happened to that poor girl. Our government ministries, departments and agencies should be held to account for what happened to that poor girl. Instead, we have a media class that's absolutely delighted that somebody set off a couple of fireworks and set fire to a van. I don't think this story is going to go away though. Particularly if this lad gets bail today. He's just hoping that the poor girl can get justice quicker than those poor girls down in Parnell Square. Because they still haven't mailed Janet to jail the guy for that one yet. Anyway guys, that's my take on this. Like I said, I'm really angry about this. So I'm not really performing as best I should. If you like this, like and subscribe. And like I said, keep an eye out for what they're saying. Because they're sure as hell fecking around with the truth.